I've often thought over the last 15, 20 years as all this technology came into our lives that somehow the technology really was smarter than us. I guess we already know that, but that we couldn't keep up with what it meant to us. And I think part of that is a subject that is being studied or has been studied here at Notre Dame, tablet computers in the classroom. And I'm going to ask Corey Angst to come up from anthropology. Come on up, Corey. And I was trying to think as I went over this, when did we have the first tablet computer? How many few years has that been?
The iPad was 2010.
Okay,
2010.
So just a short period of time to figure out the impact.
It hasn't been long. Yeah, It hasn't been long. And one correction, I'm actually in this building, management department, not anthropology, although some would describe what I do as more anthropologic. Who's the anthropologist in this room? There's one around here. I was thinking about changing the title of my slide to In Defense of the iPad based on some of the earlier presentations, but I think I'll stick with this one. So, Corey Angst, I'm a professor of information systems and strategy here in the management department. And what I want to do first is talk a little bit about the process that got us to where we are right now. So I took part in the e-publishing working group, which was a cross-campus group of about 12 or 15 of us, everybody from the bookstore to various departments to OIT. And the simple question we were asking is, does it make sense to use tablet computing in the classroom? So I was lucky enough to be the first professor to roll this out to a class. That happened in the fall of 2010. That was iPads, and there were 40 students. And I was a really popular professor for a couple of weeks because I was giving away iPads and had people showing up at my class that weren't in my class trying to get iPads. Eventually we settled back on 40, and we've been running this pilot now for just about 2 years. My class was actually what's considered to be, or we think is, the first paperless class. It was entirely paperless. The book, all the readings, all the grading, everything. We never exchanged paper. They never handed anything in. I never handed anything back on paper. And it worked really well. I still use a lot of the same techniques, even though I don't use the iPads in my class anymore. And then this was followed up by, in 2011, we were fortunate to get a nice shipment from Samsung with their Galaxy Tabs, which is the competitor to the iPad. So that's me, big gigantic representation of myself. Whoops. So I have a bit of advice here for junior faculty. If you want to get your face in newspapers and on TV and that sort of thing, do a study on Apple's stuff. People love Apple stuff, and they have a huge following. And for some reason, this stuff just gets tons and tons of attention. This is the first and the last time I'll ever get Alyssa Milano's attention. The Alyssa Milano, 1 million followers on Twitter. She tweeted about what we were doing at Notre Dame right after it happened. And that ended up in a lot of publications. One was Fast Company saying we're one of the most wired universities, which I believe to be true, actually. And then it blew up. And the video got 17 to 20,000 hits, and I was getting lots and lots of requests for interviews, and this thing's taken off on its own on me. But here's the second piece of advice for junior faculty. If you're not tenured, don't do a study about Apple, because you will be inundated with requests for information. You'll be asked, I was asked by other institutions, other academic institutions, the US military, grade school, even a preschool called me saying, should we be looking at iPads for our 4-year-olds? I don't know. I don't know what these sorts of populations are looking for. I can tell you what we did. So ultimately what we did was answer some questions and wrote some reports. And this thing's got a mind of its own. But here's what we learned. I'll spend some time, about 5 slides. I don't know why. Maybe I'll just set that there. And So we've had about 250 students go through this now, about 10 classes. You can see on the right, you guys are probably more familiar with these letters than I am, but the MGT one is mine, the project management. But we have a couple of first-year studies. We have an arts and letters. There's MBAs. They've been in the law school. I'm only showing you here about 5 or 6 of the different programs that we've used them in, but they've been through about 10 classes. Interestingly, we didn't see much variation between the courses. We thought we would. So things like the iPad encourages exploration of additional topics. Now 3 here is neutral. What I will say to you, if you understand stats, is that all of these are statistically significantly different than neutral. So they're more favorable than neutral, which, good or bad, it's at least something. We're seeing that, 1, they encourage exploration. 2, this one surprised me. They help me manage my time more effectively. Makes this course more interesting. I still can't believe that one because my class is so interesting already that I can't figure how it could be any higher than what it was. The last one. Now, I say the most frequent request I got from people that were asking me about this study was, did the students learn more? Learning is a very difficult thing to measure. You have standardized tests, those sorts of things. We tend not to give those tests in a university setting. So can I say unequivocally the students learn more? No, absolutely not. But the perception is that they're learning more. Let's try this one. Everybody asked this question, iPad or Galaxy Tab. We didn't see any difference across the studies that we've done. The devices are similar. The functions that they were using them for were very similar. Dead heat, pretty much on this. Nothing statistically different. Here's one that came up in the meetings a lot before we actually rolled out the iPads. It turns out that when ebooks were assigned in the past, that students would just print out the entire book and use it on paper because they didn't like to read on the computer itself. Well, we didn't find that at all. In fact, quite the contrary. So more than 70% of the students said that they either never or almost never printed, which was a relief to our support folks here that we weren't bogging down all the printers and eating up the print quotas. So it really wasn't an issue of, I'm going to have to print this out because I don't like reading on the device. That didn't surface. The other thing that seems intuitive, and it's like, well, why is this surprising? E-reader, they were being used as e-readers. We were wondering, are they just going to use these to play Angry Birds and not use these as a productive device? And it turns out that at least, so this one is specifically talking about my course, the course that the iPad was assigned in. But as you see there, we're looking at 60 to 90% of all reading in the assigned course was being done on the devices. So my book was an ebook, but I also assigned, Harvard cases and various other things that are all PDF based. So they were doing almost all of the reading on the device. They were also doing reading for other courses on the device and outside reading of whatever on the device. All right, last slide, I think. I think this one was quite telling, though. So ignore the second, third, fourth, and fifth. Just focus on the first column over there. We asked the students at the end of all this, what would you do? What would you choose next time, if there was a next time? And they said they would overwhelmingly would choose the loaner iPad again and rent the book. That's how it worked in my class. You get the iPad, you have to give it back. That was not a fun day. I'm glad I did all my CIFs before I took their iPads away. And they purchased the ebook for less than half. The list price on my book was $112. Now I realize the gap has been closed a bit, but they bought it for $50. And then it went away after 6 months. We thought that was a big deal. It turns out it wasn't a big deal because you guys sell all your books back, and all it was doing was taking a little bit of money out of your pocket that you weren't sending back to mom and dad when you sold your books back, right? I know the scam that you guys are working here. So what is this? This is probably the second most common question I get. What is that tablet then? Does this mean I don't have to buy my kid a laptop or a smartphone? I hate to break anyone's heart on this one, but I just view it as another piece of the ecosystem. And I'm a culprit in this as well. I still have the iPhone, I still have a laptop, and I love my tablet. I think they all work together. I think that depending upon what the need is, I choose one over the other. And ultimately, I see that the interlinked system itself is really where the value lies. So I don't read a laptop in bed at night, ever, but as my wife would attest, and she's sitting right there, I often read my iPad or sometimes my iPhone in bed. So it's really just deciding what's the right form factor at the right time. So I guess this means you got to spend the $500 in addition to what you're already spending on technology. All right, this is my last slide. So when does this make sense? Actually, there was one other thing I wanted to say. The most important thing we learned in this whole process, I'll pull these up, was that we didn't have any catastrophic things happen. Our wireless network didn't get bogged down, even though these were all wireless, all in one room over in DeBartolo. We had one stolen out of the almost 2 years we've been doing this now, and that was just dumb luck that somebody grabbed a bag and it included an iPad. And then we had 2 tech support calls. So we really didn't have any of the issues we were concerned about on the front end of this. So it makes a lot of sense when computing and storage needs are really low, or if there are high, but you can access the cloud in some way, which, as you guys know, everything is going that way. So it's going to become even more and more easy to do that. I'm not a big fan of typing on it, but I use an external keyboard for it. Why does it make sense? It's low cost, lightweight, doesn't get hot. Certainly doesn't get as hot as a PC or any sort of laptop. Very mobile. The setup and the training time is minimal. It's really easy to get. We never had a training course to show the students how to use it. It sounds silly to even say that, because you just pick one up and you use it. So if you guys are interested at all in this, I'm still doing some work on this. I've been really laxed on my blog, but if you are interested in the academic papers that we've written on this, go to the tiny URL sites. That way you don't have to write down the whole thing, and that'll redirect you to the main site. But that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you, Corey. What are you giving away next semester? Just in case there's a line or something. Quick true story. I have a 5-year-old grandnephew, and his folks ordered an iPad. It came on a Saturday morning by FedEx, and he was up watching cartoons, and they were still asleep. And by the time they got up, the 5-year-old had the iPad up and running. I just can't figure that out.